Modern data systems operate with a massive blind spot. Legacy networks can only partially reconcile about 14% of the global population across their various silos, leaving the true economic footprint of the other 86% entirely invisible. That invisibility carries a specific cost. The unpaid care economy represents an $11 trillion extraction of human time that standard economic metrics simply fail to register. This gap forces massive institutions, from utilities to hyperscalers, to plan for the future using statistical ghosts. Without a clear view of the substrate, they rely on hallucinated systemic averages to make high-stakes infrastructure decisions. The result is a massive accumulation of institutional waste. Right now, 80% of energy grid interconnection queues are composed of speculative phantom requests from developers who are guessing at where capacity might eventually exist. The ZIP-001 protocol, or Layer 3, addresses this disconnect. It functions as a decentralized completion layer for the Internet, built on a strict mandate to query data at its source, rather than collecting it in central hordes. This architecture relies on the and of coherence. The logic is direct. The system recognizes that institutional waste at the core cannot be solved unless the uncompensated friction at the human edge is resolved at the same time. Most infrastructure upgrades fail because they assume a big bang is necessary, an impossible requirement for every system on Earth to change at once. Layer 3 uses a precise starting line called the minimum viable ignition. It requires just one state, one grid operator, one utility, and a few anchoring entities. This provides the exact thermodynamic mass to establish the pattern ledger and prove the protocol regionally. This modular theory is grounded in the PJM reference case, a specific multi-state footprint where the necessary utilities and grid operators are already aligned. Successful ignition requires a jurisdictional safe harbor. A state-level anchor provides the legal standing and the governor's horizon necessary to protect the network as it begins to scale. The 65 million-person PJM footprint functions as the reference case, the ultimate proof that a modular economy can be booted up regionally to establish the truth. Institutions interact with Layer 3 through a secure bridge called the Helix Wall. This allows an entity to route a zero-knowledge question through the network without exposing their internal database, or PII, to the outside world. The payload travels from the enterprise wall down to the individual smartphone, where it is received by a sovereign enclave called the countermirror. The human acts as the final witness to reality, attesting to the data locally. Their device generates a mathematical proof of the truth while keeping the raw personal data entirely private. When 67% of the nodes at that specific geographic coordinate reach consensus, the protocol locks the pattern. Once the truth is secured, the system deploys large action models. These operate strictly as algorithmic fiduciaries, constrained by the network's consensus. The 67% consensus generates a multi-signature cryptographic authorization. Armed with that mathematical validation, the LAM executes the solution directly within the corporate ledger to clear the bottleneck. The AI in the sovereignty engine operates under strict fiduciary constraints. It is stripped of its ability to surveil or hallucinate, and is utilized strictly for verified metabolic action. The finalized pattern is permanently secured in the Hive. The raw, toxic, hot data used for the calculation is algorithmically destroyed as soon as the result is verified. This execution purges speculative ghost requests from enterprise and grid queues. By removing the phantoms, supply and demand meet in a state of dynamic equilibrium, without the need for constant surveillance. The protocol caps systemic capture at 8%, releasing 92% of value back to the origins, flowing symmetrically to the institutional core and human edge. On the edge, individuals receive point-centric fiat, with weighted multipliers compensating for unrecorded caregiving and structural friction. By zeroing out defensive capital, clearing bad debt provisions, and billions in speculative interconnection deposits, the core entities capture a 36-to-1 efficiency dividend on their ledgers. Operating on Layer 3 is mathematically cheaper than maintaining the fragmented silos of the current Internet. The system replaces high-cost defensive spending with a streamlined coordination layer that cures structural friction at the root. After the capital is distributed, the newly healed nodes emit a resonance pulse back to the central hub, providing mathematical confirmation of the result. This pulse generates the 15-day governor's report. Instead of waiting years for census autopsies, jurisdictions receive a real-time ledger of human and ecological stability. Scaling happens through modular inheritance. Adjacent states and utilities simply inherit the proven MVI template and snap it into their regional boundaries. The hubs multiply exponentially, propagating the pattern across grid borders and international boundaries until the network covers the entire substrate. This exponential growth leads directly to the Phase 3.0 critical mass threshold. At 67% global adoption, the network becomes self-sustaining, and the cost of remaining outside the system exceeds the cost of joining. Crossing this threshold transitions the internet from an era of top-down extraction into an era of absolute equilibrium, where truth is verified at every